Mystery and Assassin's Creed are two words that go together very well. The series itself is built around mystery, with many of them sitting at the very core of the franchise, constantly being expanded upon or slowly solved as the story moves forward. But there are also plenty of mysteries that remain unsolved, ones that not many people talk about and have faded into obscurity over the years, like Abstergo's secret time travel experiment or the true nature of eagle vision as seen in the RPG games. And as a continuation of our previous video, today we're diving into even more unanswered questions hidden within Assassin's Creed lore. So let's find out what they are. Assassin's Creed loves injecting Isu sci-fi twists into real-world conspiracies. The Philadelphia Experiment. In real life, the 1943 Philadelphia Experiment is an urban legend claiming that the US Navy tried to make the USS Aldrich invisible to radar. But in the Assassin's Creed universe, it was something much darker. According to Subject 16's files, the Templars secretly brought an Apple of Eden aboard the ship, hoping to use the artifact to develop literal cloaking technology. And it didn't go as planned. Instead of bending light, the apple bent reality itself. The experiment accidentally triggered localized time travel, sending the ship roughly 18 minutes into the future. But the human body wasn't built to survive a tear in space-time. When Aldrich reappeared, the results were horrific. Sailors were driven insane while others were reportedly fused directly into the ship's steel hull. Abstergo buried the incident and classified it as a catastrophic failure. But that creates a massive problem for the lore. The Templars accidentally achieved physical time travel, so why did they stop? Did they keep the data, or did they try to recreate the experiment in a war that has lasted for centuries? If they can continuously chase the Apple of Eden, why not chase this thing again? At the very end of Assassin's Creed Rogue, a veteran Templar Sheikh Cormac walks to the Palace of Versailles and coldly assassinates Charles Dorian. At the exact same moment in the opening of AC Unity, a young Arno discovers his father's lifeless body. That single moment shapes Arno's entire life. It sets him on a path toward the French Brotherhood and eventually turns him into one of the deadliest assassins in Paris. And that's what makes this so frustrating. Ubisoft accidentally created the perfect setup for a future story, a master assassin hunting down the very Templar who orphaned him. Two playable protagonists and two fan-favorite characters, and one personal revenge arc. But it never happens. Despite Arno dismantling the Templar Order in France and Ishay remaining an active and influential Templar during the exact same era, the two never crossed paths, and the storyline is simply abandoned. Did Arno ever investigate his father's murder deeply enough to learn Shay's name, or did they secretly clash in some untold chapter of the lore? For a franchise built on revenge, legacy, and generational conflict, it's shocking that Ubisoft never followed up on the one rivalry that practically wrote itself. And to this day, the fate of Sheikh Cormac and whether Arno Dorian ever learned the truth remains one of the biggest unsolved mysteries in Assassin's Creed history. Imagine being an immortal demigod armed with the most powerful Isu artifact in existence, walking the earth for over 2 millennia and just sitting on the sidelines while the world nearly burns down over and over again. This is the reality of Kassandra. At the end of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Kassandra takes up the Staff of Hermes, and that staff halts her aging entirely, allowing her to live from roughly 400 BCE all the way to 2018 CE. And we also know for the fact that she didn't just sleep through history. A crossover DLC in Valhalla confirms it that she did clash with Eivor, which makes the real question unavoidable. During these 2400 years of existence, how was she not everywhere? Where was she when Rodrigo Borgia unlocked the Vatican Isu Vault in Assassin's Creed 2? She is by design a one-woman army capable of wiping out the entire Templar operations before breakfast. And yet, she lets history unfold. That's what makes it so strange, because unlike most characters in the series, she isn't bound by time, so the silence becomes a mystery. Was she avoiding interference by choice, following some personal code, or was she simply letting humanity run its course no matter how close it came to collapse? When Odyssey lets players fight the Minotaur, Cyclops, and Medusa, it feels like the series has fully stepped into fantasy territory, but the lore quickly pulls it back into something far more unsettling. First civilization science. These creatures are tied to the Olympos project, where the Isu scientist Aita, husband of Juno, used pieces of Eden to forcibly mutate humans into weapons. Official Isu records even refer to them almost casually as guard dogs, which immediately leads to the real horror question: guard dogs against what? The Isu are already portrayed as a godlike civilization. They had advanced technology and mind-controlling apples. Humanity itself was engineered to be obedient and manageable, so the idea that they needed 20-foot labyrinth-dwelling monsters or multi-eyed bioweapons to keep humans in line doesn't really add up. Unless they weren't made for humans at all. The scale of these experiments implies something much larger and more resistant than standard human rebellion, something that couldn't be controlled with typical Isu military assistance. Now, I know there were different Isu factions fighting against each other, but that still doesn't make sense. They can literally use Isu technology to ward them off. And this is where the mystery deepens. What exactly were they preparing for? The humans could not create this much chaos, so was there a rival species we've never seen? Or something older, an unknown force that predates even their own civilization's dominance? But Ubisoft has never fully answered it, which leaves one of the darkest implications in the franchise hanging in the background. The Isu didn't just rule the world, they may have been preparing for something that could actually threaten them. If you look at history, Homo sapiens or us were not the only ones walking the earth. We shared the planet with Neanderthals and a whole family tree of other early hominids. But in the Assassin's Creed universe, Charles Darwin's theory of evolution comes with a massive sci-fi twist. According to the lore, humanity wasn't a natural biological progression. We were a manufactured product by the Isu. They created us in a laboratory to serve as a controllable slave workforce. Which leaves us with questions like, where do the Neanderthals fit in? If we were the mass-produced Isu workforce, what were the other human-like species? Were they early defective prototypes that the first civilization simply discarded into the wild? Or is the truth much darker? The franchise has never actually clarified how real-world evolutionary branches fit into this universe. In AC's Syndicate, Jacob and Evie Fry team up with Dickens to investigate a series of urban legends and paranormal activities. These are called dreadful missions. For the most part, they play out exactly how you expect in an Assassin's Creed game. They turn out to be hoaxes. You find all of the unexplained stuff related to humans and their supposed mischief. But then you find a mission titled Dead Letters. The setup is a classic rescue. The twins are trying to save a woman who has been kidnapped and shoved into a carriage. You chase the carriage down the foggy streets of London and you finally force it to a stop, and you rip open the door to pull her out. Except she isn't there. The woman has completely vanished into thin air. In her place, resting on the seat, is a single mysterious letter. Jacob and Evie suddenly wake up standing nearby, completely disoriented, as if the entire high-speed carriage chase was just some shared fever dream. And the game gives you absolutely zero explanation for what just happened. Like, did they both suffer a hallucination? If so, what triggered it? Was there an undiscovered piece of Eden hidden somewhere in London, or in a franchise built entirely on supernatural stuff? Did the Fry twins just encounter a literal unexplained ghost? Ubisoft never solved it, leaving a permanent glitch in the reality of the 19th century London, and leaving us to wonder what the hell was actually riding in that carriage. If you dive deep enough into the Assassin's Creed lore, you expect to find ancient gods mind-controlling apples and secret societies. But what you don't expect is a mind-boggling sea monster. If you played Assassin's Creed 2, there's a good chance you stumble into one of the most unsettling moments in the entire series. Deep beneath Venice, inside the flooded assassin tomb, there's a large pool of water. If Ezio simply stands on the edge and stares into the dark water for about a minute, something massive swims past. A giant shadowy squid. For years, people thought it was a one-off developer joke, an Easter egg just to scare players. But then years later in AC4 Black Flag, it happened again. While diving at a shipwreck, you can watch through a window as a giant squid suddenly attacks and drags a white whale into the abyss. While developers have brushed these off as fun Easter eggs, they exist physically within the Animus simulations. So from a lore perspective, what are we actually looking at? Did the Animus glitch and accidentally generate a monster? Or, much more terrifyingly, did the Isu who genetically engineered humans and created mythical monsters also experiment with sea creatures and created this monster or monsters? We have no idea, but it definitely makes jumping into the water a lot more stressful. For the first decade of Assassin's Creed, the franchise had a very clear sci-fi explanation for eagle vision. It wasn't magic, it was a genetic sixth sense. And the reason was that certain humans possessed a high concentration of ancient Isu DNA. They could instinctively sense enemies, track targets, and read hidden messages. It was basically a localized biological radar. But then AC Origins happened and suddenly the lore completely broke its own rules. Starting with Bayek and continuing with Kassandra and Eivor, eagle vision was no longer a glowing sixth sense. It became literal telepathic bird drone control. Baye could physically see through the eyes of his eagle Senu, and Eivor could do the same for her raven Sunin. But here's the massive unexplained problem. How does that actually work? Having ancient precursor DNA to explain a heightened intuition makes sense within the game's established boundaries. But how does having Isu DNA allow a human to physically hijack the optic nerves of a wild animal? Is there an undetected piece of it implanted in these birds, or are the birds themselves genetically modified Isu creations? Or is there some kind of biological Bluetooth connecting the assassin to the animal?
The Bluetooth device is connected successfully.
Ubisoft has never bothered to explain the bridge between heightened human instinct and literal telepathy. They just handed us a bird, completely rewrote how the franchise's most iconic ability functioned, and left the actual science behind it completely unexplained. At the end of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the franchise pulled off its biggest modern-day twist since the death of Desmond Miles. Bastibinus Hawk, a master assassin from the 9th century whose eyes with a reincarnated Isu trickster god Loki, managed to successfully escape a 1,000-year-old digital imprisonment. But he didn't just escape. He manipulated Lila Hassan into taking his place, stole the incredibly powerful staff of Hermes, and used it to regenerate his ancient physical body and smoothly infiltrated the modern-day Assassin Brotherhood. We see him meet with Sean and Rebecca, and we watch him request a face-to-face meeting with the mentor of the Brotherhood, William Miles. We see him casually slide into the Animus with a sinister smile, and then the timeline essentially goes dark. Yes, we got Mirage, but that was entirely a prequel exploring how a young Basim lost his mind to Loki. In the present day, the reality of the situation is terrifying. There is a literal immortal Isu god walking around the 21st century holding the most powerful piece of first civilization technology on the planet. His only stated goal is to reunite his scattered Isu family, specifically his lover Alethea, whose consciousness is trapped inside the staff. But how does exactly he plan to do that in a modern day? Is he going to use William Miles to manipulate the assassins into destroying Abstergo for him? Or is he trying to find Isu cloning facilities to build new bodies for his children? Or is he prepared to burn the entire modern world to the ground to get what he wants? The answer is unclear, and that's one of the biggest mysteries of the game series. Valhalla takes a really fascinating approach to its first civilization lore. Throughout the game, Eivor drinks hallucinogenic potions to relive her past life as the Isu ruler Odin. But there's a catch. Eivor's 9th century Viking brain cannot mathematically comprehend advanced sci-fi technology, towering glass skyscrapers, or genetic engineering. So her mind actually rewrites what she is seeing to make sense of it. The Animus applies what developers call a mythological filter. Advanced Isu cities are visually replaced by the magical realm of Asgard, and rival Isu factions are viewed as frost giants. It's a brilliant narrative trick, but it also creates a massive frustrating mystery. Because if everything Eivor sees is just a fairy tale metaphor for real Isu history, what exactly was Fenrir? In the mythological visions, Loki's son Fenrir is a literal gigantic talking wolf that grows to the size of a mountain and is prophesied to kill Odin during Ragnarok. But we know for a fact that the Isu were just a highly advanced humanoid species, so there were no magical giant wolves walking around their laboratories. So what was the real Fenrir? Was he a genetically engineered bioweapon created by Loki? Or was he a half-human, half-Isu hybrid who led a violent rebellion? Or was Fenrir something of an artificial intelligence? Because Ubisoft has never released the unfiltered truth of those memories. We still have absolutely no idea what kind of sci-fi nightmare Odin was actually fighting. And that's it for today's video. We hope you guys loved it, and if you really did, then make sure to let us know in the comment section below. Subscribe for more content like this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, goodbye.